So may I welcome Momoko Ando, director of 0.5mm, to New York. Great. So, Ando-san, you've just taken our New York audiences on a real roller coaster ride emotionally. I've heard many different sounds and reactions in the theater. And I wonder if you could just say a few words, if there's anything you want to say to say hello to our New York audiences.
First of all, thank you so much for coming and watch my movie, and I really wish I was there. And also this is actually first time I'm doing the Skype interview thing, so I don't know if this is gonna work all right, and I'm a bit worried, but I'm so happy that thank you.
Great.
And also because this is very long film, I'm kind of worried that everybody's maybe hungry now. I guess it's like 10 in the evening now in New York.
Yes. But we have many people sticking it out who really want to talk about this film with you, so I think it's really great. And the image is actually quite crisp on our side, so we can see quite well.
Okay.
Great. So I'm just going to ask a few questions, and then I'll open it up to the audience afterwards. To begin with, you know, I think a lot of people are probably wondering about the collaboration between you and your sister Sakura Ando, the star of the film. And you know, I'd heard a lot about your first film, Kakera, and your kind of enforced method acting with Hikari Mitsushima, and kind of getting the correct performance out of her character, making her a more withdrawn character by kind of treating her coldly on set. And first of all, I'm wondering if that's true, and also if in this film you used any similar techniques.
Okay. Actually, with Hikari Mitsushima, it's completely true that I actually ignored her all through the shooting, because she's very energetic actress, and just before she did Kakera, she finished shooting with Shion Sono, Love Exposure, so she was more used to kind of fight with director, and because she's so energetic that she tries to kind of, I don't know, I think she likes to be kind of commented on her acting, and she likes to make conflicts, but that didn't really work for the part that she was, the role that she was doing for Kakera, so I decided to ignore her, and I think it worked pretty well, because I actually had quite a lot of good communication with the other girl, Riko's. So Hikari was very jealous that I would talk to the other girl, but I ignore her. But I think that worked pretty well with that movie. And with 0.5mm, this movie, because my sister's my muse all through my life, and I always wanted to work with her, but because I have so much respect to Sakura Ando, that I didn't want to work with her with my first movie, because, you know, nobody knows that if I can actually direct, and if I work with my sister and if I mess up, then that would ruin her career, and I didn't want to do that. So I waited, and I didn't actually imagine that I could work with her this early with my second movie. So I'm very happy to be able to work with her with 0.5mm, and with Sakura, because she's my sister, I trust her, and I think we know each other more than anybody, and that we didn't have to talk much, and it was more like I'm working with myself and she's working with herself, kind of. So our conversation was quite strange, I think, because I would say like, can you do that? And she'll go, oh yeah, I'll do that like this and like that. And nobody understands that conversation, but we understand each other. And she does actually what more than like probably 10 times more than I expected. So it was great to work with her.
And a similar question, just about acting styles. There's some really fantastic physical comedy in this film, especially from Sakura. And I'm thinking of moments where she falls down the stairs at the beginning of the film after the fire, before seeing the hanging mother. And also, so all of the performers really have interesting, moments of physical comedy or expressive moments that are moving towards, dramatic tension or irony. And I'm also thinking of the moment in which Masahiko Sugawa covers his face with his hands and kind of stretches his facial features down and holds them for a moment. So these gestures mean many things, and I'm wondering how they're practiced or how that communication, you mentioned a kind of subliminal communication with Sakura, how you work through with that with other actors.
I think one important thing about this film is that now these days in Japan, they don't give out good roles for old actors, like well-respected actors. They only have grandfather part, maybe a small part in movies, and they don't feature them as a main character. And that was one of one thing that I really wanted to try. That I have so much respect to old actors that I wanted to feature them in a movie as a main character. And so that each actors, I think they knew that my approach. So they're so how do I say, they're so different that they would come to the stage that they would act like when they were young. They wanted to give out everything that they had, because they also knew that it's quite rare to have the main big part in movies when they get older. So I could talk to them quite a lot. Usually, I think many directors, they are quite scared to say anything about their acting because they're too respected. But with this film, I kind of told them that I would actually, fight with them from the beginning. If there's anything that I wouldn't like, then, I would just tell them. And so that was quite different, I think. So, and also Masahiko Tsugawa, this is a strange story, but actually I casted his older brother for 0.5 millimeter first, but he died. And so I had to recast and reorganize everything, and because I wanted to cast Masahiko Tsugawa as well, but I picked his brother first, so I couldn't cast him because it would be strange to have brothers and they look very similar to each other. Very different actors, but they look quite similar, so I couldn't cast Masahiko. But when he died, after he died, Masahiko Tsugawa told me that he would want to do the part. So I think all through the shooting, he was he was almost like his brother. It was strange, like that. So he's very the comedy parts, when he has this funny faces and stuff, and that's very similar to his older brother. So he was trying to approach like as his brother was, like how he was like when he was alive. And
yeah, I'm also wondering about some of the other male characters in the film and the casting process, because we also have some comedians in the cast. I'm wondering about Toshio Sakata and Junkichi Oimoto, and of course Akira Emoto at the end of the film, and what you were hoping to draw out of them or kind of work as a counterpoint to how they're usually made to act as elder actors.
Sakata, Toshio Sakata, I think he's been in movies, but only very small parts. And this might be the first time he's acting a big role. And so it was quite difficult to work with him for the first probably a few days. But after, it was funny, right? because he's never been in like movies for such a long time, like that he actually fell in love with my sister.
And this is the bicycle man, for anyone who's wondering, right?
And he got really confused and he was very busy with shooting for TV comedian shows and stuff. So he would sometimes, like once a week, he has to go back to Osaka and do the TV show and comes back to the film sets. But I've heard that when he goes back to Osaka for the comedy shows, he would say, "I'm my wife. It's so sweet and blah blah blah," and everyone was like, "You are not married, like who are you talking about?" And so I think that he's not senile or anything, but just I think he was so into the part, the role, that he actually believed that he was so in love with Sawa, and he kind of thought that he was married to her. And I think that was so sweet, and so his face in this movie is real. That smile, and he's so shy, and during the shooting, every time Sawa trying to touch him or in the acting, he would just get so red, and it was so sweet. And I think that we could capture that face in the movie, so I'm very happy with that.
Well, that's great. And I'm also wondering about the process of Sakura Ando working with Akira Emoto, because she has another connection to this actor as well. Right?
He's her, how do you say? Father, but...
Father-in-law?
Yeah, father-in-law. So, actually... Yeah, when I was reading the script and imagining that she's kicking his ass, that was quite funny. But they're professional people, so while we're shooting, it wasn't actually. I think Akira Emoto was a little nervous because they had this little erotic scene that he touches her leg, and I'm sure he didn't want to do that, but he had to. So it was quite interesting to see how it was first time I've seen him a little nervous. I mean, has very long career as an actor, and he's always poker face, and he's a very serious person, but I think he was a little nervous, and he's also a very shy person, so...
Understood.
But with Sakura, I mean, I think when it comes to this situation, the females are much stronger, and she didn't really care. If father-in-law.
Makes sense.
She was enjoying more. That fact.
I'm also curious about the process of adapting this film from your debut novel. I understand. I haven't read the novel, but I'm very interested in how the film departs from it, and if you attempted to achieve the same sort of emotional tone within the film that one can find in the book.
Actually, it was very, very difficult to write novel myself and then write the script myself, and I kind of thought that it wouldn't be a good idea that I write the script, because once I finished writing the novel, all my how do you say, like, energy to remake the same thing into movie was gone, because I was satisfied. And sorry about this dirty word, but it was more like I vomited already, and that I didn't have anything to vomit anymore.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah, I was empty already. So it was very difficult, but then I realized that I've got to find where I'm going to shoot and who I'm going to make this film with. Then the novel becomes more reality to me, that maybe I would have to motivate again. So I flew to Kochi Prefecture, where I shot this movie first. Then I saw the place, and the Kochi Prefecture was so beautiful that suddenly it kind of like changed from black and white to color. Then I start writing the script, and I try not to think about my novel. I try to kind of forget what I've written, and I wanted to approach from like zero. So, but I kind of can't remember how how I did all the process, because I think I was I think it was too complicated for me that I just had to do it. And now the film is made, like, and done, and it's there. But yeah, but maybe one thing was I really tried not to think about the novel that I've written, because even I didn't have to think about it, because it was already in my head and heart. So, yeah. But it was very hard, actually.
Understood. And before I open up to the audience, I want to ask regarding the shooting location. I know that you did shoot it in Kochi Prefecture, and that you share a residence in Tokyo and Kochi. And just wondering what your connection to the area is, and how the film production could connect to any sort of revitalization of more rural areas of Japan, and if it may connect to any of the themes of the film or your larger project.
Kochi, I think I've just fell in love with Kochi, and I never thought I would move to countryside. I never actually imagined, but probably I found Kochi Prefecture not... people are very not Japanese. Like, in Japan, especially in Tokyo, when you're walking around and you bump into somebody, like stranger, you don't smile to each other. But in Kochi, they do. And I just think the people there still have this... actually, on the other side, they're probably so very, very Japanese, that they have something that we used to have, and they still have that. For the future, I believe that we need to keep that our kind of, how do you say, origin, like identity, and they're very, at the same time, they're very Latin people, and they love drinking, and the food, people, the sunlight, everything is full of energy, and everything is alive, and I've never felt like that with any other place in Japan. So I thought it would be good to live there, and now like we have Skypes or emails, and I can just fly 1 hour and then I'm in Tokyo. So yeah. And also like Kochi is really interesting prefecture that I want to shoot many other films. Like when I'm there, I can like I come up with so many different ideas of different stories and movies. So it's very inspiring to live there.
Great. So on that note, how about we open up questions to the audience? We have 2 microphones traveling throughout the crowd. So if you do have a question for Director Ando, if you could just raise your hand and the microphone will travel to you. We have 2 questions here. If we could bring the microphone down on this side first to the blue shirt, and then we'll have the man in the row behind him. Right here with his hand raised. Yeah. If you can pass this along. Yeah. Great, thank you.
This movie was longer than average, and the lengths of movies is kind of codified, like a Japanese movie has to be 126 minutes long. At what point did you realize that this was going to be an atypically long movie? Was that storyboarding or editing? And that also kind of makes distribution and screenings more difficult. Did you have troubles with the production company or struggles over the length of the film? And what did it take to make this movie the length that it needed to be?
Okay. Actually, when I wrote the script, it was already this thick, and it was everyone was saying like this is going to be like 5 hours film. So actually I knew that this would be 3 hours long from the beginning, and while we're editing the same, but it was longer, so I had to make it 3 hours and 16 minutes. And actually, to be honest, I have edited 2 hours and a half version. Still long though, to like over 2 hours, like 2 hours and 32 minutes or something. And I have that version, but actually how I edited that, how I made that short is I've cut the last sequence completely. Where Akira, Emoto, and Sakura and Makoto's part, and because the producer told me that 3 hours and 16 minutes is too long, and I wanted to keep it 3 hours and 16 minutes, so I told him, okay, I'll make it short, but Akira Emoto would disappear completely, and that's my version, or short version, and if that's fine, then I'm fine. And obviously it wasn't fine, so I
Great.
keep it 16 minutes. And yes, it was difficult to distribute because I'm sure you know that with this movie we can only run 3 times a day, usually 4 times. So it's for the for theaters, cinemas. It's better to have shorter movies that they can earn more money, right? But the same again, because I didn't want to cut it short, and I just kept saying that I wouldn't cut it short, and it has to be this long. And if you can tell me where to cut, then I'll make it shorter. But actually it was quite difficult for anybody to find where to cut. So I don't know, sometimes I think these days there are a few movies, great movies that is over 4 hours, and also like love exposure was like 3 hours, no, 4 hours, and so with some good cinemas, they understand what the director wants to do, and I'm thinking my next movie I want to make 90 minutes film. Because I don't know, I want to prove that I can make short movies as well.
Understood. Well, we have many, high duration audiences here, and we actually screened Love Exposure here at Japan Cuts as well. So we like long movies.
Great.
So we have our second question here, and maybe if you could just say your name, just to make it a little more casual. Thanks.
Sure. My name is Greg, and thank you first so much for making and sharing this movie. I really thought it was very beautiful. So thank you first. The movie obviously has a lot to say about people at different moments in their lives, and certainly a lot of older characters, as you were mentioning. But so I'm curious, in the process of your working on this film, what was in your mind in terms of some of the things that you wanted to share about either aging or difference between people of different generations? I'm just curious about what your thinking about that particular topic was while making the film.
Thank you so much. Actually, this project began with my family looking after our grandmother for 8 years at home, and through that experience I really felt that there should be more respect to older people, and especially the country as well, like how they don't really care, children and olders. And I just think that anybody, like every older like grannies, they have their own history that is longer than us, and that's already something that we should respect. And there are still people who experienced war, and we are going to lose these people who has this experience within 10 years time for sure, because they're now like over 90 years old. And I really felt that we have to pass the baton before we lose them, and that was one of the main reasons that I wanted to make this movie. And also, like, when we are born, we are already facing the death, and that's the biggest contradiction in our life. And even kids or younger people, I'm sure it's something that we don't want to think about, that aging and death, but we can think about it in a positive way, that if we know that we will die someday, we should think about, like, I think preparing for the good death is already starting once you're like born. If you're like have friends, or if you love somebody, and you should have somebody that you love, you should have somebody who loves you, and that would, I think, lead you to good death. And so those kind of things that I didn't want to, I wanted to say that thinking about aging is something not only negative, but it could be quite positive. And it's very important to think about, to be connected with other generations. So
great. Do we have another question from the audience? I see his hand right up here in the third row, right here. So we could pass this along. Yeah, so if you could just introduce yourself to Ando-san.
Hi, hello. My name is Rob. Thank you so much for the film. It was very amazing. My question is, where did you get the inspiration for the music selection? It was very very whimsical and playful, especially after the first sequence, after Sawa leaves the house on fire. It seems kind of like contradiction, but yet at the same time very playful.
I like to have that contradiction. I like to use funny music for sad scenes, and yeah, I like to have this contradiction with the picture and the sound. And with this one, I knew that from the beginning that I knew that I wanted to use orchestra, and also some kind of theme with kind of opera or orchestra, because it's like the life is like a symphony, I guess. So I just thought that it would be the best music for the movie, and we how do you say, played. We recorded each orchestra, and I think if you know very well with each music, then we're trying quite tricky things that we've tried to kind of play. Maybe if there is a 4-strings orchestra music, we start with 2, and then we slowly add 3rd and 4th, like these kind of arrangement that we did with the movie. And each track has actually meanings. But and I know that this wouldn't it wouldn't be obvious at all for the audience, but I wanted to try to do that kind of layered messages. So I'm really happy that you pointed out about the music.
Great. I just have one question riding on Rob's question, which is that you seem to be very interested in contradictions and kind of thematic layering and kind of changing approaches within the film. And I know that some of the reactions to your previous film, Kakera, tried to perceive it as a kind of statement of kind of feminist love between these two characters. And I'm wondering, you'd mentioned earlier that every time someone watches 0.5 millimeter, they have a completely different concept of what the film is. So I'm wondering what you how you like to guide people towards one conclusion or another, or how you really try to keep the potential of the film both on a story level as well as on political level open for the audience and what they can do with that.
You mean Kakera and this is different?
Oh, of course, very different films, but I think both of them have kind of openness to how we are to perceive both the plot in some ways, the significance of some characters to others and the chronology of events, as well as the kind of statement of a film. This almost feels like a statement film, but then it doesn't at the same time. So what you think about that, just in a very general manner.
Yeah, I actually like to, I don't like to explain in movies, because with writing and with novels, it's important to explain and details and feelings and blah blah blah. But with movies, I believe that it's actually like my dream is to make a movie with only without any dialogue, but something that like everybody understands about what's happening in a movie almost. So because I don't like explaining a lot in the movies, that also I want to open up the kind of answer or the ending to the audience. And because so that like it's like you're spending everyday life, and you're living your life, each of you and myself as well. And film should be like that. Like you watch a movie and you go home, but the movie kind of shouldn't end. Like all the big entertainment movies are different, probably, but with these kind of independent movies, I think same as poems. Like I want audience to take it back home rather than just finish at the cinema. So, and also because I usually like to pick up the themes on problems in society.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And with these themes, again, I think it's not something that you can just give out one answer. So,
great. I think that's a great way to wind down the evening. Could we take maybe one more question from the audience? Do you have time on this one? You okay?
yes.
Okay, great. So maybe one last question from the audience. I see a hand right here.
My name is George Hirose. I'm a Japanese American, and I love this film. Really love this film. I spent my whole life trying to figure out Japanese people, you know, because having grown up in America, and I was just wondering how much of this film. I know there's some personal, real life experiences involved in writing this film, but were the characterizations based very much on some real people or some real situations?
Yes. Actually, I went to research to old people's house, and I've interviewed and spent so much time with senile people, and so they're based on realistic character. And you know that Masahiko Tsugawa's long scene, One Cut, that he talks about war. That scene I think has 7 minutes long. That dialogue is exactly the same from the novel, and that is a real voice that I had an interview with this guy who used to be how do you say?
A naval officer, or?
Yeah, and I interviewed him, and he was 91 at the time, 91 years old, and he was completely senile, that he still believed that he is living in the right after the war, and I couldn't edit that dialogue because it was, you know, the real voice. So, yeah.
Wow. So unless there are any pressing questions from the audience, are there any final remarks you'd like to make to the folks here who've just enjoyed your film before we sign off? Ando-san, is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Actually, one thing I really wanted to be there, because as a filmmaker, I love to talk to the audience, and I like to communicate with audience, and I wanted to hear more about my movie, and especially because it's the first time I'm showing this movie overseas. So, but I think my friend is in the audience, so maybe if any of you have any opinions about my movie, you can tell her, then she can tell me when she comes back to Tokyo.
Okay, great, definitely.
But thank you so much.
Great.